I'm Brian Scordato, and this is the Idea to Startup podcast brought to you by Tacklebox. We accelerate ideas into real companies through the Tacklebox membership, and we think through startup strategy every Wednesday on the Idea to Startup podcast. You're here because you're thinking about an idea, or you're ready to launch something, or you already launched something and you're running full steam ahead. We're here to help with the counterintuitive stuff. On to it. Today, we're back with part 2 of testing out the early rep potential rubric. If you didn't listen to part 1, I thought it was good and you'll probably like it. I'll put it in the show notes. But you'll be able to get through today's episode without listening to that one first if you're too busy watching that show where John Hamm is stealing from his neighbors like my wife and I are. It's a show that, at its core, is about expectations, and that is fitting because my wife and I now have like 11 minutes a night to ourselves between the little guy going down and the littlest guy waking up for a bottle, that it takes us a full week to watch an episode. But those 11 minutes feel like a mini vacation, our 11-minute John Hamm dates. I'd watch that guy read the dictionary. It's also possible I'm just very tired and the show stinks and this whole intro is obsolete in like 2 weeks, but it's the way it goes. Anyway, last episode we talked through the ERP Rubric, a tool we've developed to help you wrap your arms around the potential of an idea. It is also great for comparing ideas. If you've got 3, it'll help you pick which one to focus on first. To show the ERP Rubric in action, we talked about a founder named Erica, who turned up to Tacklebox with a whole bunch of ideas, like probably 80% of our founders do. She was trying to figure out which one to go after first, and to this point had been using a pros and cons list, which included nebulous bullets like better VC potential and probably easier to execute on. For most entrepreneurs, building a pros and cons list for an idea at the earliest stage is like a few weeks ago when I had a new recipe I was trying out that called for kohlrabi, and I ended up just wandering up and down the produce aisle of the grocery store for 10 minutes like a kid who'd wandered into the wrong movie theater. Eventually, a nice lady asked what I was looking for and pointed me in the right direction. Neither me nor Erica knew what we were looking for, but neither of us wanted to admit it. The ERP rubric exists for this exact moment. ERP, again, stands for Early Rep Potential, and the idea behind it is that the best idea for you is the one where you can get the most momentum the fastest. And momentum, in this case, means reps. This isn't revolutionary. The problem that lets you practice solving it the most is the problem you're most likely to get good at solving. But people don't think of ideas this way. They think of VC potential, or which one is easier, or which one will make them more impressive to the people they went to high school with. Startups are emotional. We've got to remove that. A rep, the core of the ERP rubric, consists of 5 parts. You need to first find a customer. Second, convert that customer. Third, deliver a product or service, likely held together by duct tape and bubblegum and probably done with no tech, to that customer. Fourth, gather a bunch of direct feedback from that customer. And then fifth, see if you can grow organically based on working with that first customer. The goal is to find an idea where we can run a full rep, even if it's clunky, in the next 2 weeks. That is not always possible immediately, but it's usually more doable than the founder thinks. And it'll give you enormous insight into what a future with that idea might look like. You want to test drive ideas as soon as you possibly can. The best way to show you how to do this is to show you how to do this. So we'll be running 2 of Erica's ideas through the rubric over the next couple of episodes. Enough preamble. Let's get into it. The ideas: mold and FODMAPs. For all the newbies who are too busy watching John Hamm steal $40,000 Birkin bags to listen to episode 1, here are the 2 ideas Erica is deciding between. First, the one we'll do in a future episode: mold. Lots of people have mold, don't know they have mold, and it negatively affects their respiratory system and sleep and cognitive abilities and all sorts of other things. It is a menace. The idea is to help people find out if they have mold and then help them get rid of it. Both are hard problems. These problems also kick off all sorts of interesting adjacent problems around toxins and water quality and all of that. More on that, though, in the next episode. The idea we're going to push through the ERP rubric today has to do with a term you might not be familiar with: FODMAP. FODMAPs are short-chain carbohydrates that a huge chunk of people cannot digest properly. They cause all sorts of problems and, for the most part, are ignored. Here is Erica on FODMAPs. Quote, FODMAPs are interesting because of how massive a blind spot they are. About 15% of us have undiagnosed IBS level carb reactions, and 80% of diagnosed IBS patients feel dramatically better on a low FODMAP diet. But testing for it is really hard because FODMAPs are in, like, everything. One type are in wheat, rye, barley, onions, and garlic. Another type is in beans, lentils, and chickpeas. Another is in lactose. Another in apples, pears, mangoes, and honey. Another in sugars, artificial and natural. Some people can handle some of these, most people can't handle all of them. She continued. It would be great if there were ways to test for these, but they aren't effective. There are breath tests and blood tests, but they're filled with false positives and negatives. They don't work. The only reliable way to find out how much better you could feel is what's called an elimination diet. When you remove all FODMAPs for 2 to 6 weeks, then slowly reintroduce them systematically and see which ones mess up your gut. This is obviously really hard to do, so people don't do it, so people feel terrible. Most people have no idea how much better they could feel if they found the stuff that aggravated their gut and stopped eating it, and I want to help. So there's the idea. You probably have no idea what it feels like to feel good, Erica thinks, and she wants to help. Let's see what the ERP rubric says about her chances. Part 1. Customer. The first step of the ERP rubric is often the hardest one because you've got to pick a specific living, breathing, in this case, probably bloated person you've met and spoken with to be the representation of that customer. The ERP rubric does not work if you're vague. If you say the customer you're testing for is, quote, someone who struggles eating gluten, the whole system falls apart. The challenge isn't usually choosing that person, it's the feeling you get of leaving everyone else out. But know that you can run through the ERP rubric a few times with different customers. I'd recommend it. And if you're struggling with who should be first, always think about disproportionate pain. Which of the handful of customers you're deciding between has a disproportionately large amount of pain because of something unique about them? When I asked Erica for a first customer, she mentioned a few flavors of customers. One who'd just gone to the doctor and been diagnosed with IBS and was starting to go on the elimination diet journey. Another who had chronic stomach pain but hadn't ever gotten it tested out, but had been excited when Erica told them the idea. And another who tried to do an elimination diet in the past to isolate trigger foods, but had trouble with it because they had young kids and it was really hard to cook separate meals for everyone for weeks on end. You might think that these customers could be lumped together. They all might end up needing a similar looking product that helps with an elimination diet. But I couldn't disagree more. They're each different flavors, and startups are successful if they're hyper, almost painfully specific. If it feels like they're reading their customers' minds. That is the only way to build trust. And adding the flavors of customers together is going to dilute all of your messaging and pull from that specificity and remove any chance you had of building that trust. That is why we choose one. When I asked Erica which of all the customers she'd spoken with had felt the FODMAP pain disproportionately, she answered immediately. Oh, definitely the third one, Liza. She's the mom. She really tried to do an elimination diet, but it's just so hard with kids. I think I could help her with that. And there we go. That is step 1. Pick the customer with the disproportionately bad pain. Now we figure out how hard it'll be to get reps with them and people exactly like them. And we'll do all that after a little smooth jazz. Hey, we finally got a free trial at Tacklebox. So if you've got a startup idea and a full-time job, head to gettacklebox.com and get started. We'll create some structure for you and get you going on interviews before you have to pay a dime. Think of it as instant momentum. Back to it. Part 1. Will you be able to find your customers? After choosing the customer we're looking to find, the rubric tasks us with actually finding them. This always reminds me of that Mark Twain quote, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." Because founders are always so confident they'll be able to find customers that they zip past this stage and move right on to product. Not us. Reps only work if you can reliably fill the top of the funnel. You'll never be able to get good at solving a customer's problem if you cannot find them easily. This requires a few things, which the ERP tests for. Let's see how Erica's customer held up. As a reminder, the rubric breaks down the 5 parts of a rep into a few questions each and assigns points based on the answers. You can get the Notion template by subscribing to the No Whisper Ideas newsletter at gettacklebox.com/articles. To make this as easy to follow as possible, I'll group the questions and give Erica's thoughts after. For the potential for finding customers part of the rubric, there are 3 questions. Question number 1: unfair advantage. Rate your unfair advantage for finding this customer, maybe through an existing network or community membership or online audience or some other way. 0 to 5 points. Question number 2: after pain. How glaring and frequent is the pain caused by this problem? How easy is it to find this customer immediately after they feel that pain? 0 to 5 points. Question number 3: the weekend test. If you needed to find 15 customers this weekend, how would you do it? Could you do it? Is it repeatable? 0 to 5 points. Here is Erica answering these 3 questions. So, I've got a bit of an unfair advantage for finding Liza, she started. I'm part of a mom's group that's got a Facebook page I can post to easily. I'm also at events with kids like every weekend. If my customer is a mom or just a parent, I can find them. So, I'm giving myself a 4 out of 5. She continued on to the second question. The second prompt, she said, after pain, is much tougher because I'm not sure which pain we're talking about: the pain of the problem itself or the pain they experience trying to solve the problem. Here is where I jumped in because it's a great question. And the answer is either. If I get Achilles tendonitis from running, right after I have to stop a run because of the pain is a great moment to reach me if you're trying to sell me something. But if it's also hard for me to find a physical therapist because I work odd hours or live in a remote location or something, that is also a painful moment. You can reach me then too. Okay, great, she continued. Well, it's hard for me to get in front of them after a painful meal, but it'll probably be easier to get in front of them as they try to meal plan for the week during an attempt at an elimination diet, or maybe while they shop for Tums at CVS. I'll give myself a 1 out of 5 here and make a note to come back to it. And finally, the weekend test, she continued. How might I find 15 customers this weekend? Well, I think I can just write a message in the Facebook group saying I'm thinking about starting this company and asking if anyone wants to meet me for a coffee to talk about it. Other options are to go to kids' sporting events or the park or all the other places parents go and just talk to people. I think this actually would be pretty easy. I'll say 4 out of 5. So, a total of 9 out of 15 points here, which is solid. But we've got to dig in on how likely it is we'll actually convert Liza or someone like her into an actual customer. ERP Part 2: will you be able to convert customers? To get reps, you've got to be able to easily fill the top of the funnel and then have mechanisms to convert those people that showed up. When most people think about conversion, they think about persuasion. How compelling can your messaging be? How strong are your case studies? How trustworthy is your branding? At this stage, that's just overthinking it. Those are all things that you can test and optimize and build on later. What we're looking for with the ERP rubric are the systemic advantages or disadvantages inherent to an idea. So we've got to zoom out. The conversion section has 3 questions that'll help with that. Again, worth 5 points each. And again, we'll read through them and then get to Erica's thoughts. First, problem frequency. How often does this problem occur, and how often do customers try to solve it? Daily, weekly, monthly, or hopefully not, yearly? You get 0 to 1 points for monthly, 2 to 3 points for weekly, and 4 to 5 points for daily or multiple times a day. Number 2, prior attempts plus the hassle premium. How many different attempts at solving the problem has your customer tried? Have they ever given up and just overpaid someone to, quote, take it off their plate? 0 to 3 points if they've tried 2 or more different solutions, and the last 2 points if they've paid someone to take the whole thing off their plate. For example, trying TurboTax for their business, but then just giving up and hiring an accountant. And number 3, wedge offering. Is there a smaller related problem you can solve that happens more frequently and has a faster feedback loop? This will build trust and get your foot in the door, and it's worth up to 5 points. Here is Erica on conversion. Okay, for problem frequency, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. The core problem, which is gut discomfort, happens basically every day. If someone's sensitive to FODMAPs and eats them, they'll feel it pretty soon after. And if they're on an elimination diet, they're constantly making decisions about what to eat and how to feed their family. That's going to be daily. The only reason I'm not giving myself a 5 is that not everyone connects their discomfort to their food right away, so they might not be looking for a solution every time the problem hits. But still, frequency is high. Next, prior attempts and hassle premium. I'm giving this one a 4, Erica said. Every mom I've talked to who's had stomach issues has tried something, usually a bunch of things. Gluten free, dairy free, probiotics, fiber supplements. Some have changed the time they eat. So that's easily 3 points for prior attempts. And for the hassle premium, I can't give this the full 2 points because while I've heard people say they'd love to just pay someone to meal prep for them every week, I've never heard of anyone actually doing it. Seems like something I'll need to test. And finally, the wedge offering. This one's a little harder, Erica started. The wedge would be something like helping them meal plan for a week, or maybe even just building a grocery list based on their sensitivities that they could then cook from, or helping them identify 5 meals they can make that the whole family will eat, no separate cooking. That wedge feels doable. I could test that pretty quickly, and it would build trust. If I help them with that one thing, they'd probably come back for more. I'll give it a 2, since it isn't that differentiated. I think they could do all that stuff online anyway. I need to think more on the wedge. Wedges are tough. The final tally for conversion was a 10 out of 15. Great problem frequency and prior attempts, decent hassle premium, shaky wedge. But some really good fundamentals. The problem happens every day, which is huge. That means you're going to have a chance to hit customers after they feel the pain all the time. That is a giant win for any startup. And it pushes us into the next section, a concierge MVP that deliver value immediately in the next 2 weeks. Part 3, concierge MVP, actually solving their problem. The next step of the rep, after picking a customer, finding them, and converting them, is what most founders think of as the most important part. The whole reason we're here, the John Hamm of today's pod, solving a customer's problem. It is, in fact, not the most important of the 5 steps. It's maybe the third most important, but people like solving problems and people like products. That's why they get into entrepreneurship. So, what we need to do is solve our customer's problem before we have any semblance of a real product. This is where a lot of ideas fall apart. You'll meet founders who say things like, I can definitely build this product once I have the right developer and I raise $250K and I get FDA approval and on and on and on. This isn't helpful. At this stage, the goal isn't a scalable solution, it's a manual one, a concierge MVP. You doing the thing for the customer. When I think about concierge MVPs, I think about the founder in a butler outfit, with the tuxedo and the hat and the white gloves showing up the instant their customer runs into the problem and magically solving it for them. That is what you need to do. Here is an example. Maybe a founder thinks boutique fitness instructors struggle with scheduling and client follow-up. So she charges the business to personally manage the calendars and send reminder texts for 3 instructors for 2 weeks using Google Calendar and her phone. If they show up on time and retain more clients, she's validated the need for a tool. Back to the rubric. The 3 points for the solution section, worth 5 points each as always, are first, concierge MVP. Can you manually solve this customer's problem right now without writing code or building a product? Second, design partners. Do you already have customers who would collaborate with you to use and help you develop the solution? And third, unfair advantage. Do you have any unfair advantages when it comes to delivering value? Maybe their unique skills or relationships or expertise. Here is Erica. First, on the concierge MVP thing, I've already done this. I've walked friends through the elimination diet process step by step. I built them meal plans. I helped them prep. I sent them recipes. I jumped in with an annoying Brian reminder. Just a heads up, you're building this just for Liza. So if you've built something similar-ish for other customers in the past, it doesn't count. Can you build it for Liza? Erica glared at me, something I was getting used to, and continued. Good point. I guess the concierge MVP for Liza would have to be a meal service, right? Where I cooked and dropped off meals, because she's tried to meal plan and it's just too complex. So I think I could do it, but I'd have to charge her a ton. I guess the question is more about cost, which is worth testing, I guess. So maybe 5 out of 5 in that I could do it, but who knows if she'd cover the costs. Great. Up next, design partners. Yes, Erica started. Liza would definitely help me with this and be a design partner. And I'm pretty sure I've got 3 other parents who are very similar to Liza who would test this out too. That is another 5 out of 5. Last up, unfair advantage. Erica started. I think I've got 3. First, I've been through this whole process myself and I documented everything. I've got a full elimination plan with checklists and systems and even a few templates. It won't be hard to translate that into meals. Second, I've got credibility with this audience. I'm a parent too. I understand the chaos of getting home after a long day of work and trying to make 3 meals at once while one kid is crying and another just got stuck in the dirty clothes hamper. I can message to the chaos and build trust. Third, I have a good friend who runs a catering business. I bet I can get her to cook for me for a weekend or two. So I hate to be so confident here, but I think that's another 5 out of 5. Added up, the solution section is a clean 15 out of 15 for Erica. That is a big score. 2 sections left, feedback and growth. Part 4, collecting feedback. This section is short and straightforward. Once you've delivered value, will it be obvious if the thing you did worked? This is straightforward, but probably trickier than you think. If you design a sandwich board that a coffee shop puts outside to help them sell more donuts, and they sell more donuts, is it obvious to them that your sign was the reason? Do they even track donut sales close enough to notice the change? Will they buy more design stuff from you as a result? These are the types of questions we need to think about. Here are the 2 big ones, 5 points each. First is obvious visual success. Will it be blindingly, indisputably obvious to you and your customer if they're successful with your concierge MVP? And second, length of feedback loop. How long will it take for a customer to reach that success point of your concierge MVP? Here is Erica. This section is way fuzzier. Ideally, when people find a food that's been wrecking their gut and eliminate it, they feel better, and I'm confident that they will. But it's going to take some time to figure out which exact food is responsible. There are no shortcuts. But I do think it'll be clear eventually that the program we've put them on removed their immediate pain. So I'll say 4 out of 5. And for the length of the feedback loop, this is troublesome. Their stomach should feel better in a few days or a week or 2 at most. But again, to actually find the culprit is going to take weeks of reintroduction. This is a 2 out of 5, unless I figure out a better approach. So overall, 6 out of 10 on feedback loops. This is fine. Erica's problem creates clear wins, but it takes time to suss it all out. And balancing the immediate win with that longer term sussing out of allergies is going to be tricky. On the other hand, I really like the clarity of the potential win. We can work with it. It'll travel. Which brings us to the last section, organic growth potential. Part 5, organic growth. Will success with one customer lead us to the next 5? Organic growth for 99% of startups has nothing to do with YouTube or TikTok or any sort of viral anything. It is word of mouth. One customer talks to another customer about the success they've gotten from your product, and your product grows. Or a customer's success is so visual that other customers can't help but notice and ask how they did it. Again, organic growth is something we can predict based on characteristics of your first customer. Here are the criteria. First, word of mouth. Do these customers already naturally talk about the problem you're solving with each other? Second, portable success. How visual is the success? Will other customers be able to see it? And third, case studies. Will it be easy to get testimonials or create case studies from early customers? Here is Erica. On word of mouth, I think this is a yes, especially with parents. They talk, they text, they swap tips on Facebook groups, and if we give Liza a low FODMAP chili her whole family actually eats, she's going to tell her friends about it. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. On portability, this is a little tougher. FODMAP wins are felt, but they're harder to see. It's not like a before and after photo. That said, if someone goes from I can't figure this out and I'm exhausted to I'm finally not bloated and I slept through the night, that story might travel in the right setting. I'll give it a 3 out of 5. And finally, case study potential. Absolutely, Erica said. Once someone goes through the process, we'll have detailed notes. We'll have meals that worked and symptom tracking and how fast they improved and all that. I could wrap it into a simple one pager or a blog post or a testimonial or a TikTok or something. I've already written up versions of this for a few friends. So 5 out of 5 for a total of 12 out of 15 for organic growth. This is good. The rubric ends with two general questions that I recommend people answer after going through the previous parts of the ERP gauntlet. They're both a bit less tangible, but they're both really important. First, what mile are you starting on? If this idea were a 10-mile race to product market fit, what mile do you start on? Do you have to start at the beginning or do you have a head start? Erica said, I'd say mile 6. I've already helped people go through this. I've got the raw materials for the product and I know where to find my customers. I'm not at the end sprint, but I'm close. This gets Erica 6 points. And finally, the uncomfortable bonus. Do you enjoy anything about this idea that would probably scare off other founders? Here's Erica. Yes, I like doing the elimination planning. I like the complexity of it. I like debugging a diet. I like helping people through it. Most people would probably find this tedious and exhausting, but I find it fun. That is a 10 out of 10. When you add it all up, Erica's got a final ERP score of 83 out of 100. Here is the breakdown. For finding customers, she had a 9 out of 15. Conversion, 10 out of 15. Concierge MVP, 15 out of 15. Feedback, 6 out of 10. Growth, 12 out of 15. And general, the mile plus the bonus, 16 out of 20. This is way stronger than I'd anticipated. Most ideas come out in the 50s and 60s. It's hard to find customers. It's hard to convert them. It's hard to have a concierge MVP at the ready. The success isn't usually all that visual or portable. This idea has a whole lot going for it. And to address the massive elephant in the room you're probably thinking about, I have no idea if other companies are solving for this. The competitive landscape isn't really something we worry about yet, because the whole point of reps are to get better at each step, and better always means contrast from the existing solution, different from what's happening now. The ERP rubric is going to test your ability to get those reps, to get to the point where you can iterate product and messaging and all the pillars that'll help you build something different from what everyone else is. My advice to Erica after this is to do a sprint. Run a 2-week test with Liza and anyone else who's interested. Try to leverage the first round to get another set of customers. Speak with a lawyer to make sure you aren't breaking any laws by serving food, but that is solvable. Name this thing. Get a website up. Maybe she calls it gut feeling. I'm not saying she has to, but I am saying there are worse names. And that was the ERP rubric in action. The end. I have no idea how this podcast is going to come off. Maybe it'll be boring or maybe it'll be helpful. It's a bit different than a bunch of previous episodes, and I couldn't tell as I recorded it. But hopefully it makes it clear that an idea turns into potential momentum really fast with a process like this, and that the best predictor of startup success is the ease of early reps, the ability to practice and get better at solving a problem. And for those reps not to be wholly overwhelming. They should be fast and cheap and easy so that you're comfortable trying lots of new stuff. If you've got an idea or a couple of ideas, I'd recommend running through this exercise. And if you're wondering, yes, I did think about naming Erica's business How to Lose Your Gut in 10 Days, but that felt more like a diet startup. And 10 Things I Hate About FODMAPs felt like a BuzzFeed listicle. So gut feeling it is, unless you've got a better one. This was the Idea to Start a Podcast brought to you by Tacklebox. If you've got a startup idea and a full-time job, head to gettacklebox.com and join us. Have a great week.